Danny, my friend Danny said, I'm a professor at the University of Denver, started college in law. I want to thank one of my students, Tristan, for coming. I told her as she came in that it might sound very familiar. This talk might sound very familiar to what she hears in our little seminar that we have that I'm teaching, but actually doing more learning from the students, and called same-sex equal protection jurisprudence. I do practice and do a lot of shopping of my ideas and thoughts with the students, and they give me a thumbs up or thumbs down on it, and make me realize how old I am, basically, in talking about all these issues. So I'm also this semester a visiting scholar at the UCLA Law School's Williams Institute. And the Williams Institute is a think tank that, among many things, generates social science data on LGBTs. And so I'm not a social scientist, nor have I been an activist or scholar really on LGBT issues. My background is primarily focused on civil rights in the context of race discrimination. But as a law professor, as a black lesbian, and a mom to a 4-year-old who saw running around here, who's basically an independent contractor, as you can tell, it's difficult to witness the popular representations of who gays and lesbians and bisexual, transgender members of our community. It's difficult to see the representations of us without wading into the debate, at least somewhat, particularly after Prop 8. So this talk is a very, very early work in progress. I'm getting up to speed on a lot of issues, con law for one thing, but also the social science data. This talk will be co-authored with Gary Gates, who's a social scientist at the Williams Institute. So I will do my best to hold Gary's proxy, though probably not near as well. So I'm really interested in revealing how, I'm going to check the time here, make sure I give us enough time for conversation here. So I'm particularly interested in thinking about the ways that the courts fail to reflect and think about the racial class and gender diversity of the LGBT community. And the talk right now, as I said, is entitled Straight Scrutiny, because I think that what happens is that as a result of the court's view of gays and lesbians as white, predominantly male, and affluent, it impacts the way courts' decisions take place or the way courts analyze particular issues. And so I want to do this by offering the recent social science data on LGBTs, particularly the race and class demographics of at least gays and lesbians, I should say. And you'll understand why I say that when I get to the end of the talk. There's very little data actually on our bisexual and transgender community members. But I welcome your thoughts and feedbacks about the talk. So please shoot me an email or give me your thoughts as this kind of work evolves. So for the 70% of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans who supported Barack Obama on November 4th, 2008, it was a historic day to be celebrated. However, November 4th also proved to be a day of stigma for LGBT people. In Arkansas, voters approved a measure prohibiting unmarried partners from adopting children or serving as foster parents, functionally deeming gays and lesbians as unfit to parent. In Arizona and Florida, a majority of citizens voted to deny gays and lesbians access to marriage protections, limiting them to unions between one man and one woman. And finally, in California, Proposition 8 sought to amend the state's constitution and limit marriage and its countless benefits to heterosexual couples. Prop 8's vote was too close to call when Obama made his historic speech in Chicago's Grant Park. However, 10 hours later, the Associated Press announced that it had passed. California voters had banned marriage rights for gay couples. It was a stunning triumph for the conservative right. McCain had won just 37% of Californians' votes. The anti-gay measure passed thanks to the support from Obama's base. Commentators quickly jumped into the fray and the media to point out the lines upon which us and them had been drawn. On November 6th, the San Francisco Chronicle reported, quote, while Obama publicly backed the No on Prop 8 effort, African-American voters had no trouble voting overwhelmingly for the man who will be the nation's first black president, and then voting 70% in favor of Prop 8, exit polls show. White gay activists as well, and prominent commentators also pointed the finger at African-Americans. African-Americans did not cause Prop 8's passage. Subsequent analysis of polling data clarified that age, religiosity, meaning the number of days or the number of times people go to church a month or weekly, and political ideology, imagine that, all these things served as stronger indicators of support for the measure. Nevertheless, the scapegoating of black voters in the wake of the anti-gay measure's success serves as a potent reminder for all of us of the power of race and homophobia, and how they are often intermingled as tools of oppression. And they're often levied for divide and conquer tactics. On one hand, there are white LGBTs. On the other hand, there are black heterosexuals. And these are monolithic communities whose members and objectives are completely unrelated. So I think the popular representations of LGBTs as white and affluent, often male, renders LGBTs of color invisible. And this invisibility ultimately is used as a wedge between white LGBTs and black heterosexuals, and it serves to reinforce heterosexism. And I think it's used as a wedge between a lot of communities, not just blacks and whites, but also Latinos, Asian Americans. And today I want to focus on one aspect of this, and it's one slice of equal protection law. The federal and state courts' representations of gays and lesbians as, quote, politically powerful, end quote, in order to deny them suspect and quasi-suspect classification under equal protection law. So these opinions that we're seeing in the lower federal courts and in the state Supreme Court opinions are strongholds of heterosexist views and principles. They embody viewpoints of stereotypes about gays and lesbians, not just your traditional notions of stereotypes that you traditionally think about, that the court might articulate around the fear of children learning about what it means to be gay and lesbian, or having children be foster parents or adopt children, but also the demographics of who gays and lesbians are. And the failure to talk about and think about these demographics reflects and raises issues of race, gender, and class. And this is a reality that's often overlooked and ignored. So I'm going to briefly talk about the equal protection landscape, and then turn to the social science data to kind of flesh some of this out. I'm going to put my little toe into the social science data, basically. As you can tell by my sheets, I'm starting out in baby steps with this, particularly without the social scientists who I'm co-authoring with. So the Supreme Court, as probably most of you know, has never addressed the level of scrutiny applied to sexual orientation under equal protection law. Most state and federal courts deny LGBT review under strict scrutiny. And strict scrutiny is applied to suspect classifications like race and national origin. The court also denies intermediate review or scrutiny to gays and lesbians, and intermediate review is applied to categories like gender and non-marital children. So both these levels of review are denied on the basis of sexual orientation for claims brought by gay and lesbian plaintiffs under the Equal Protection Clause. And usually the standard that's applied is rational basis. And the plaintiff under rational basis has the burden of proof to show that the law is rationally related to a legitimate government purpose. And this standard is incredibly deferential to the